Increaser app has this beautiful checklist for today's task. And believe it or not, the first version took me just an hour or so to implement. That's the power of abstract reusable components. Let me share its implementation so you can find useful bits to finish your front-end tasks faster. You can find both the demo and the source code in the description. In this demo, we have a list of tasks in the useState hook. We map through the items and render a checklist item for each task. We also render an opener component that renders a button to add a new task. When the button is clicked, the opener renders a ChecklistItemFrame component to add a new task. Let's start with the checklist item component. It receives the same properties as the invisible HTML checkbox component, but also a name property that is rendered as a label and a style property that is passed to the root element. The component renders a Hoverable component as label. You can find more about the Hoverable component in this video. Inside, we place a checklist item frame that serves as a frame we'll use for both a prompt to add a task and the form to add a task. By using the same component to define shape of an interactive area, we make the interface more consistent and therefore more intuitive and pleasing to the user. To make the box component square, we use combination of a 100% width and the aspect ratio of 1:1. When the isCheck property is true, we change the background and border color to the primary color. We also render a check icon component when the isCheck property is true. Next goes the content component that renders the name of the task. We also use a line component to animate the line crossing the name when the task is completed. We use the isCheck property to animate the line from 0 to full width. Finally, we render the invisible HTML checkbox component that is used to toggle the isCheck property. Notice we have a label element as a root element, so we don't have to add onClick anywhere and solely rely on native checkbox input to do its job even so it's not visible. To start the flow of adding a new task, we have add checklist item prompt component. It receives the onClick and children properties. Here we also use the Hoverable and ChecklistItemFrame components to define the shape of the interactive area. Finally, we have the ChecklistItemForm component that receives the onSubmit and onCancel callbacks together with the name placeholder property that is used as a placeholder for the name input. We use the useForm hook from the React Hook Form library to handle the form set. We also use the useK hook from the React Use library to handle the escape kpress to cancel the form. Here we also leverage the ChecklistItemFrame component to make the shape similar to other items in the checklist. To become an effective programmer, check out my productivity app at increaser.org.